Okay, everyone, I heard you loud and clear. When we did the Noctua LC1 series review, a lot of people mentioned that we should have made a little bit more of a comparison between like the class-leading LC1-36 and 24 and Arctic's Liquid Freezer 3 series. And I get it. I know exactly where everybody was coming from. And it does sort of make sense, even though these coolers are from very, very different parts of the pricing spectrum. We have to put things into a little bit of context because right now, in the US at least, the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro is basically 1/3 the price of Noctua's LC1-36. And you can literally buy two of them for the price of a single 240mm from Noctua and still have a chunk of change to spare. Not only that, the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro is considered by a lot of people to be one of the best price performance coolers on the market right now. I mean, sure, there's tons of other budget focused coolers out there from ID Cooling, Thermalright, and many others, but very few of them have the respect that Arctic does in our community. So yeah, the Noctuas are extremely expensive, and at a time when everybody is fighting for every single dollar in their PC upgrades or new builds, well, if you can get most of the Noctua's performance at a fraction of the cost, that's like a huge win. And with Arctic's legacy of offering an amazing combination of price, performance, and yes, even warranty, well, they are at the very top of most people's shopping lists, as they should be. The only thing that you have to take into account is that yes, if you were paying attention in the Noctua review, the Arctic Pro actually did make an appearance over and over again. It was here and here and here and a bunch of other places too. Basically, it made an appearance in every single one of our 32 decibel and 40 decibel normalized charts. But to everyone's point, we only gave a snapshot of where it landed. And yet, the amount of testing and validation we did behind the scenes was really intensive. So there's a lot more that wasn't shown, which is exactly what this video is all about. More transparency about where the Liquid Freezer 3 series ends up in the grand scheme of things. Not only that, how it compares against the LC1-36 and 24. But look, if you watched our 360mm AIO roundup, or in the additional testing that we did after that for the 9950X, where the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro was used again, well, these results, they're not going to come as any surprise to you. That's because while the two Noctua AIOs are down here with the 240mm version running a little bit hotter than the 360, well, the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro has trouble cooling the 9800X3D, which is something we already established almost a year ago, and it sits at way hotter points than the Noctuas throughout its entire noise range. Just to give you some idea of how poorly it compares, it barely breaks 72 degrees while screaming away at 53 decibels, whereas the LC1-36 managed just over 65 degrees at a whisper quiet 32 decibels. And from a decibel normalized perspective, the Pro is actually beaten by the original Freezer 3 360, but even then, these run significantly higher than every other 360mm AIO we've ever tested. Even something like the Thermalright Frozen Edge has a significant advantage. And look, I'll fully admit that anything under like 80 degrees here is a perfectly good result for a 9800X3D under full load. It's not like it's throttling or anything, but let's put this into a little bit more of a perspective by dropping in a $35 Thermalright Phantom Spirit air cooler into this. And that air cooler, that's basically like cheap as chips, is about as close in performance to the LF3 Pro than the Pro is to the super budget-friendly Frozen Edge 360. Meanwhile, much lower CPU heat output in gaming makes both of these coolers a lot more competitive, and the Pro is now able to just keep a little bit ahead of the older version. Yet they basically tie the Frozen Edge, an AIO that typically goes for less than $60. Again though, while this gets the Pro into like a high middle of the pack finish, every one of the coolers here is like complete overkill for this CPU in a gaming PC. I mean, we're talking about well under 55 degrees right across the board, and even a good air cooler will keep the CPU under around 60 degrees here. On the other hand, ramp up the heat with a 250 watt 9950X and the two Arctics get competitive results. I mean, sure, they're both essentially tied with the even more affordable Thermalright, but they're also fighting the good fight against all-in-one liquid coolers that typically cost quite a bit more. A great example of that is the Silent Loop 3, and yet they're still almost 9 degrees hotter than the LC1-36 here. And that's the difference between problem-free operation and almost hitting the chip's throttling temperature at lower noise levels. These Arctic coolers are right in the thick of things despite going up against some of the best we tested, but they can't even touch what Noctua is putting out, especially when it comes to their capabilities in lower noise envelopes. And yes, sure, at Arctic sale price of $90 or so, the Liquid Freezer 3 series does make a whole lot of sense for this type of situation where air coolers would simply get overwhelmed. But you absolutely shouldn't sleep on the alternatives here, because in many regions the Nautilus RS and GA2 light performance either match or beat Arctic's price on a regular basis. But seriously, heart to heart here, yes, we have to have another conversation yet again about what in the world is going on here with Arctic's results on Ryzen 9000 series processors. And I feel it's like Groundhog Day. I keep on bringing it up over and over again, and I'll say it again. We bought 5 of these Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 coolers. 2 of the originals and 3 of the new-ish Pro series. And they all got very similar results. If anything, we're sort of like loading the deck here in Arctic's favor because we didn't even average the results across the coolers. What we did is we took the absolute best results from the Pro and the original Liquid Freezer, and those are the ones that you're seeing. Basically, I think the problem here is multifaceted. First and foremost, there's Arctic's fans. The P12 and P12 Pro are good by themselves, but they're also loud, especially when mounted to the Freezer 3's thick radiator. It needs like a biblical amount of static pressure from the fans to outperform a standard radiator, and that causes a ton of back pressure, which in effect leads to more fan noise. I mean, to hammer home what I'm talking about here, I think we have to have a listen to what this sounds like and compare it directly to the LC1-36 from a RPM normalized perspective, because I'm telling you, this is pretty eye-opening. So let's pause here for a second and explain exactly what's going on. At the lower end of the RPM spectrum, the P12 Pro fans are spinning at 900 RPM when they hit about 32 decibels. Meanwhile, Noctua's A12 G2s are so quiet. They only hit 32 decibels when spinning around 600 RPM faster, so somewhere between 1400 and 1500 RPM. That puts Arctic at a massive disadvantage in our noise normalized testing right from the get-go. And that trend, it continues throughout the entire noise range. Like at 1600 RPM, the Noctua cooler hovers around 34 decibels, while the LF3 Pro hits 37.2. And look, that might not sound like much, but have a listen to this. So there's no two ways to say this, right? The Liquid Freezer 3 Pro is a very loud all-in-one liquid cooler. And if I compare its noise profile to almost every single other AIO that we've tested up to this point, at a given RPM level, it produces significantly more fan noise than like almost everything else that we've tested, right? And that causes a huge problem for this type of cooler in our methodology that weighs very heavily on the noise normalized performance. And there's another little wrinkle in the fabric here too. Despite Arctic's inclusion of an offset bracket, their performance on AM5 is obviously disappointing, specifically on higher wattage single CCD models. But that doesn't carry over into every CPU and platform, because look where they land on Intel's Arrow Lake. Performance is super competitive, especially when you take the LF3 Pro's price into account. This kind of cooling for a price that's typically under $90, well, there's really nothing to critique here, and that is despite Arctic having a pretty big noise to RPM ratio disadvantage. But still, don't kid yourself here. This thing still needs to get almost unbelievably loud to beat Noctua's 240mm cooler, and even when running at full tilt, the Pro never gets lower CPU temperatures than the LC1-36. And these strong results point towards Arctic simply lacking optimizations for the current crop of AMD processors, because from everything we've seen and some testing we've done, performance is perfectly fine on Intel's platforms, Ryzen 3000, 5000, and even some 7000 series CPUs. And the combination of high noise alongside something else just tanks Ryzen 9000 series results. I mean, sure, neither of these coolers can match the Noctuas in raw noise versus cooling capacity, but given its price, the LF3 Pro can put up a hell of a fight on Intel. But at some point in time, we just have to come full circle here. The Liquid Freezer 3 Pro does not come anywhere close to matching the 240mm Noctua AIO, let alone their 360mm offering in a noise normalized environment. Don't let anyone anywhere tell you otherwise. The fact of the matter is Arctic has a middle of the pack performer for a budget focused price, but they aren't the only ones either. Thermalright and ID Cooling both have all-in-one liquid coolers that cost a whole lot less, but come within a degree or so of the Freezer 3 Pro. And another thing I'm sure a lot of people are wondering is what happens if you take Noctua's fans and slap them on the Arctic cooler. Basically, eliminate Arctic's fans from the equation altogether. Now, on paper at least, you would expect maybe significantly better results in a noise normalized environment. But check these results out. On our 9950X, it does improve temperatures by about 2 degrees, which is a pretty impressive amount. But we've now created an AIO that has $105 worth of fans on top of, at best, a $90 starting price. It like completely eliminates the whole budget-focused nature of the Arctic all-in-one liquid cooler. And it still can't convincingly beat coolers that are around the $100 mark, like the GA2 Lite, Corsair Nautilus, and even the Kraken Core. Unfortunately, when managing lower heat loads, the design's inherent problems can't really be swept under the rug, and the Noctua fans don't have all that much of an effect. So yes, while Arctic's fans do contribute to the lackluster performance, obviously the cooling bottleneck lies somewhere else in the loop, like in the contact plate, pump, or a combination of everything else. And that causes minuscule gains in a gaming scenario too. I mean, all that money you just put into Noctua fans, well, it's pretty much pointless. I mean, sure, it's better than stock, but when running at such low temperatures, it doesn't really matter all that much. On the other hand, switching the fans to the Noctuas on the Intel system worked pretty well due to their strong noise normalized performance. Because remember, when running at 32 decibels, Noctua's G2 fans were able to run about 600 RPM faster than the Arctic's, which will make a huge difference on the Liquid Freezer 3's thick radiator. So I think we need to put this whole discussion about the Liquid Freezer 3 series to bed once and for all. And I know it's not going to be once and for all because these comments are going to keep on coming up in every single AIO video that we do. But I'm going to say this again. The performance of Arctic's AIOs is literally all over the place from one platform to another. It completely lacks consistency. Meanwhile, the Noctua LC1 series is like the poster child of consistency. It doesn't matter what platform you're on now or what platform you want to upgrade to in the future. These things, they completely dominate. No two words about it. And sure, you can argue the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro is like half the price of a 360mm Noctua, or a third the price when it's getting a deep discount. But I can flip that narrative on its head, guys, by pointing to the Thermalright Frozen Edge or ID Cooling FX 360 Pro that are consistently 50% cheaper than the Liquid Freezer 3 and offer comparable or even sometimes slightly better performance. The question here isn't really which is better, it's which cooler is right for you and ultimately your budget. Because in the grand scheme of things, the LC1 series is expensive and its looks aren't for everyone, but it's simply the best of the best on the CPUs we've tested. And when it comes to the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro, look, I'm sorry for somebody who came to this video looking for positive affirmation after buying this AIO for a Ryzen 9000 series CPU. Because I'll say this straight up. It is not in any way, shape, or form the god tier AIO that a lot of people are making it out to be on that specific platform. Arctic still has evidently a lot more areas where they need to improve on. So, like I said, very Canadian of me. I'm sorry if you expected something different from this thing, but we're just reporting the results that we got after countless hours of testing and retesting. And I'm sure we're still going to get more comments about this cooler in upcoming AIO videos that we do, and that's fine. I'll refer everybody back to this video and the other two that we've done. But until that point, look, I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks. I hope that you enjoyed this content. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of rage baiters in the dog pile down below. If you want to join us, please by all means do. Have a great day, guys.